The following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Dinkins. Since our last breakfast, so many significant events have occurred in our city and around our country and literally around the world. So I'd just like to take a moment to reflect and have a moment of silence and acknowledge the recent passing of a great New Yorker and a man who turned around one of our great New York City institutions, former NYU President John Bradamus. I'd also like to acknowledge the tragic events that have taken place all around our country. Our hearts go out to those in Dallas, Orlando, Baton Rouge, Minnesota, and our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the victims during this very difficult time. Thank you. It is times like these, it is important that we work together and unite rather than divide our communities. And I believe that we, the Abney community here in New York, can play a role in identifying ways to come together as a city and emerge from this period safer, more cooperative, and more understanding of one another. It is sort of the Abney way of doing things. As President Obama said yesterday in Dallas, and I quote, "I see what's possible when we recognize that we are one American family, all deserving of equal treatment, all deserving of equal respect, all children of God. That's the America I know. That's the America I know also." Next week, we will have NYPD Deputy Commissioner for Counterintelligence and Terrorism, John Miller, will speak with us and have a frank discussion on how our police force is keeping our city safe and staying vigilant in the face of unspeakable and constant violence, tragedy, and terrorism threats. I believe the timing of this could not be more appropriate, and I hope all of you will attend and come and listen to Deputy Commissioner. It's next Wednesday. And now I'd like to welcome to Abney for the first time, New York City Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito. Melissa began serving on the City Council over a decade ago in 2015. I think she was probably 18 then, representing the 8th District in Manhattan. In 2014, Melissa was elected Speaker of the City Council and became the first Puerto Rican and Latina to hold a citywide elected political position. During her tenure as council member and then as Speaker, Melissa has tackled important issues, including pioneering the first ever participatory budgeting process in New York City, also introducing the Criminal Justice Reform Act and hiring over 1,000 additional NYPD officers. Last month, the Speaker and Mayor de Blasio shook hands on a city budget that was as comprehensive as it was timely. Including in it were measures to boost summer youth employment, measures to reduce homelessness, and measures to enact reforms at Rikers Island. The Speaker is also a champion for issues on national scale, including immigration reform and boosting women's leadership roles in government. Madam Speaker, we thank you for all you do for our city and for joining us this morning, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on the future impact on national issues in New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, Speaker Viverito.
To Abney, to Bill, To everyone that is here, thank you so much for the invitation, and it really is a pleasure to be here. I just want to thank Bill for not only the introduction, but for his opening remarks and recognizing the challenging moment that we find ourselves in. And to say that the events, the horrific events of the last week are not ones that elicit anger and frustration, which is very much a legitimate sentiment. It's how do we move forward from this point, right? And how do we come together in unity to achieve the changes that we need to uproot systemic racism, to create equality and justice for everyone. And so I really join in those thoughts and in that effort. I have felt somewhat very frustrated and some sense of hopelessness, which I think is a normal reaction. But from this moment forward, how do we proceed? And looking at the ways to do that in a positive, united way. So thank you for having us take a moment to reflect on that. And I'm very excited to be here and to share some thoughts on an issue that is of great importance to me personally, but something that is of importance to this wonderful, beautiful city that we call home, and that is immigration, right? And the impact that some of the national discourse we've been hearing on the Republican side in this presidential election, what impact it would have on us. So thank you for inviting me here today. New York is a city of immigrants. Our past, our present, and our future are intertwined with the immigrant experience. It is a story of women, men, and children from every corner of the globe who have journeyed to our city in search of opportunity. Together, immigrants built the undisputed capital of the world. It didn't matter whether your path took you through Ellis Island, John F. Kennedy Airport, on the famous Marine Tiger from San Juan, or perhaps a more difficult route. People have come because New York is a city that calls out to everyone. We're a city driven by innovation, by creativity, and by people who dared to dream. That is the immigrant experience. Immigration is what keeps us young, keeps us vibrant, keeps us competitive, and keeps us strong. Their contributions to our city are seen, felt, and heard all around us. And the vibrancy of our music, food, and art all bear the signature of an immigrant experience that is uniquely New York. As a famous fictionalized founding father says, immigrants, we get the job done. The New York City Council is proud to be a champion for immigrants. In the absence of comprehensive federal action on immigration, the council has been unafraid to lead. We've limited our city's interaction with ICE and removed them from Rikers Island. We've expanded funding for legal services in immigration court and stood up to protect day laborers. We created a municipal ID card, which is open to all, regardless of immigration status. And today, IDNYC is the most successful program of its kind in the country. And when unaccompanied minors started making their way to New York after escaping unspeakable violence, we didn't turn our back on them. We opened our arms. Today, the City Council ensures that every unaccompanied minor living in New York City has access to legal representation, as well as health and mental wellness services. We took action for these unaccompanied minors because our shared humanity demanded it. We could not ignore these children or allow them to be forgotten, denigrated, and sent back to nations consumed by violence. They are New Yorkers, and we care for our own. Unfortunately, many don't see their humanity. Some even call them illegal. And while no human is illegal, this strain of thinking has permeated the political discourse on immigration. In the halls of Congress, some have called immigrants wetbacks, said they are diseased, or worse. And this is not in some ancient past. This is recent. They have called to slash funding for cities with sensible and humanitarian-based immigration policies, like New York City. They would rather tear families apart than keep them together. The presidential election has been no better. The Republican primary was a race to see who could dehumanize immigrants the most. End birthright citizenship? Sure. Oppose the president's deferred action plans? Well, of course. Build a wall? Obviously. It was a race to find the candidate most eager to strip immigrants of their dignity. And the undisputed winner of that contest is Donald Trump. From the moment he rode down his escalator, Donald Trump has built a platform expressly designed to drive us apart. He has run a campaign based on racism and xenophobia. In Donald Trump's world, Americans are to be divided up and criminalized by their race or religion, as he is both judge and jury. He has tweeted anti-Semitic images. He has attacked a judge based on his ethnicity. And he has refused to condemn white supremacists that gleefully support him. Of course, this is not terribly shocking, coming from the man who was singularly obsessed with the conspiracy theory that President Obama was not born in the United States. Or a man who thinks Latino outreach is tweeting a photo of himself with a taco bowl on Cinco de Mayo. In fact, there have been only two constants throughout Donald Trump's public life: repeated bankruptcies and racism. That racism has manifested in several ways. One has been his call for the mass deportation of all undocumented Americans, the other a ban on Muslims. In Donald's world, someone's ethnicity can disqualify them from doing their job, and their religion can disqualify them from coming to this country. These policies share a commonality. They are both part of Donald Trump's dystopian and paranoid image of what America is. Mass deportation would rip people from their homes and tear communities and families apart. These mass deportations would be a Trump-branded reign of terror. And banning Muslims would set a religious test for immigration where none existed before. These trample on civil liberties and insult the Constitution of the United States of America. But what about the local economic impact of mass deportations or a ban on Muslims? Trump has built an empire by playing fast and loose with the numbers, and he has run an entire campaign by being fuzzy on the details. What would happen under a Trump regime if a deportation force actually removed all undocumented Americans and banned immigration and travel by Muslims? How would New York City, as the financial capital of the world, home to world-class educational institutions, an ever-growing tech sector, and a tourist destination for millions, be affected? We decided to figure it out because numbers matter and because facts matter. In short, Donald Trump's plans would devastate New York City and New York State's economy. To start, it would cost between $400 and $600 billion, not including capital costs like additional facilities and agents, to get Donald's deportation plans even off the ground nationally. When you consider New York's share of federal tax collection, that means New York would be sending $49.2 billion to the federal government to pay for the deportations of fellow New Yorkers. This is an astronomical amount of money, and it's also astoundingly foolish. Every day, tens of thousands of undocumented New Yorkers contribute to our local economy. In New York City, undocumented New Yorkers contribute $793 million in state and local taxes, money that we need and money that would disappear under a Trump regime. The city would see employment decline by over 340,000 jobs, surpassing both the 2001 and 2008 recessions. In total, the gross city product would decline by between $23.1 to $26.3 billion. That would be a 3% reduction in our gross city product. The city's economy would shrink because of Donald Trump. And while Donald Trump would watch the ruin from high atop his tacky towers, his plans would have a devastating impact on real people and would do great harm to the economy of our city. The closer we look, the more it becomes apparent that, shockingly, a con man and reality TV personality masquerading as a policymaker would drive New York's economy into a ditch. Meanwhile, thank you, Lorraine. Meanwhile, granting legal status to undocumented immigrants would mean an additional $176 million in tax revenue for New York City and New York State from New York City residents. Examining the impact of Donald Trump's Muslim ban is a little more difficult, so we based our analysis on his statement from December 2015, which said, Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what is going on. Since then, Donald Trump has spouted various versions of his proposed ban. But we do have a broad understanding of what he's calling for, and we do know who he is targeting, Muslim New Yorkers. There are almost 263,000 New Yorkers who come from nations where at least 50% of the population is Muslim. Of that population, nearly 157,000 are working. Of these, nearly 25,000 are self-employed. Who are these Muslim New Yorkers? They are a snapshot of our city's workforce. 33% are employed in industries like construction, manufacturing, and public administration. 16% work in the retail and trade industry. 15% are in healthcare. 13% work in the accommodation or food service industry. And there are nearly 1,000 Muslim men and women who bravely serve as NYPD officers, and actually one of those is on my detail. Overall, workers in New York City who were born in Muslim-majority countries contribute $14.2 billion annually to our local economy. New York's Muslim community is a vibrant, diverse, and growing population. They are important to our economy, and they are a key part of our city. Tourism is another sector which would be hit hard under a ban. New York City is the top-most destination for visitors from the Middle East to the United States, with over 45% of the market share. 320,000 tourists from the Middle East visited New York City in 2014 and spent approximately $1.2 billion. Compared to other international travelers, Middle Eastern tourists spend twice as much on average. And 70% of these visitors stayed in hotels during their visit to New York, a big source of revenue for hotels across the city and the city's hotel tax. This money, like the taxes from undocumented New Yorkers or the jobs Muslim New Yorkers create, could vanish if Donald Trump got his way. The numbers tell one story. Donald Trump's racist, fear-mongering proposals would hurt New York's economy, and they prove beyond a doubt he is unqualified to be president. Taken all together, the human and economic costs of these proposals are undeniable and unjustifiable. They would kill jobs, reduce our tax base, and lower our economic output. They would also make us unsafe. But of course, this is more than just the numbers. This is about who we are as a people and what we believe in. It is easy to get lost in the numbers, but these numbers reflect real people, reflect real families. There are New Yorkers who live and work among us, many in this building right now, maybe even in this room. The rise of Donald Trump is a soul-searching moment and a challenge to us as a city and a nation. Do we really adhere to the ideals we were founded upon? Or are we willing to throw them away because a political strongman says so? This is no time for neutrality. It's no time for equivocating. Mass deportation and a ban on Muslims are beyond normal political discourse. It is a dangerous step which leads down a dark path. The soul of our nation is at stake in this election. In order to save it, we must be courageous together. I ask that we all commit, or that we recommit, to standing up to hateful policies and protecting the progress that we have fought so hard for. We must find that courage in ourselves so we can look beyond our differences and see the humanity in one another. New York is a symbiotic place. Each part works together to ensure the success of the whole. Whether you have immigration status or not, whether you've come from a Muslim country or not, you are a New Yorker. New York needs all of us now. A better New York is not Donald Trump's dystopian, fear-mongered New York. A better New York is a New York that recognizes ourselves in one another. A New York which builds and grows together, that embraces our diversity and harnesses it as a source of strength. This is the New York we're working towards, and that's the New York which Abney is working towards. We don't need Donald Trump to make New York great again. We never stopped. Gracias. I'm going to stay here, or?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I neglected to also recognize another great New Yorker who passed away last week, and that was Deputy Mayor Peter Powers, who was an incredible deputy mayor and did a lot of positive things for New York. So, but Madam Speaker, thank you for your speech, and we open the floor to questions.
And if I could just say one thing before any questions. Obviously, you know, I'm not an economist, but this is definitely a challenge that we felt compelled to look and analyze. So I really want to thank Ray Majeski from my team that is here. And our local economists in the City Council who did extensive research and obviously looked at an incredible number of sources to verify these numbers. So I wanted to definitely to thank him for that.
Questions? Mayor Dinkins? A microphone's coming.
We lost another great New Yorker recently. His name is Roscoe Brown. Dr. Brown was a Tuskegee Airman, the first in his group to shoot down a German jet while flying a prop at something like age 22. I used to call him fighter pilot. He was a truly great New Yorker, and he headed up Bronx Community College for, I think, 15 years or so. Wonderful work at NYU. He was a really, truly great man. He will be sorely missed. And I want to say publicly, I called the mayor to thank him for flying the flags at half-staff in honor of Roscoe Brown. I did not ask him to do that. He did it, and I thought it was great to do.
He was a good friend of Abney's and my dad, and he always came to the breakfasts and was very contributory to many policies and issues that we were focused on. Questions from the floor?
Madam Speaker, thank you again for this morning's speech. I was just wondering that in light of a lot of sort of global economic volatility from Brexit and others, do you think the city is actually prepared to address some of these issues?
Well, I think, and we spoke very briefly about it recently in the council, thanks to Ray again. But right now we haven't seen a real direct impact, and obviously that is still up in the air in terms of what the outcome is. I know there's still some internal debates happening as to whether or not there'll be another referendum, whatever. So I think there's a lot of stuff up in the air. So right now it seems like we're okay, but it's still stuff that has to be something that has to be analyzed and looked at very, very carefully. So at the moment we have not seen any sort of negative impact on us. There's obviously a change in leadership over there as well, so there's a lot of volatility at the moment.
Yes, young lady in the...
With mayoral control extended only 1 year, what's the council's agenda around supporting our local schools?
I'm sorry, council's position on?
On supporting our schools. How does the mayoral control only be extended 1 year?
It was obviously we as a city council, we develop a state agenda. We had wanted to see an extension of more than 1 year. We obviously want continuity and some sort of stability, right, within our educational system, and having to constantly kind of, advocate for extension of mayoral control disrupts that a bit. So we will continue to advocate for that, and we continue to work very collaboratively with the administration and hold our oversight hearings on the Department of Education in terms of whatever changes are being implemented. But obviously having to advocate every year for an extension, I think, is disruptive, and I wish that we could get a firmer commitment from the state government.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Walcott.
Thank you, sir, and good morning to you, and good morning, Speaker. I just want to publicly thank you and the members of the council for the support of libraries.
Yes.
When we talk about when we talk about immigration and our immigrants in the New York City community, our libraries represent those individuals and coming through our doors on a regular basis. And as a result of you and the mayor, we had money baseline. We had a record amount of money set aside for capital to make our libraries current. I just want to publicly thank you for that.
Right. And like I say, I know there's many friends in this room that represent our cultural institutions, and the public library system is so incredibly important because it's evolved over years, right? It's not a place where you just go to get a book, right, or get access to a book. They really have become community centers of sorts, right? You can get GED, you can get ESL, you get access to Wi-Fi and technology. It's become a real vital hub for the educational improvement of our communities and advancement of our communities. So we really are deeply invested and very happy at the result this year of being able to baseline the funding for libraries. That's I feel very proud of that accomplishment.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. We'll see you all next week on July 20th.